Exercise 10. In this exercise you're going to learn how to use the pen tool. At least a little bit. I don't use the pen tool all that often. I prefer other selection tools. But the pen tool does have some unique characteristics. It's actually creating what they refer to as a path, and that path will remain permanently. You can alter, you can go back in, you can change it, you can move it, but it will always stay with the picture. Now, to begin with, if you're using the instruction manual, it's going to have you just find out a little bit about what the pen does. So we'll create a blank canvas, 4 inches by 4 inches by 2,000 pixels by 200 pixels. So it just gives you this little image. Put that one away. Choose the pen tool, getting the regular one there, and go on and just begin to see a little bit what it does. So start any place you want, click the mouse. You'll notice it puts in a point. You can then go any place else you want, click the mouse, and you'll notice the computer automatically joins the points. So you can go around and do that a little bit. Okay, so for the next one, instead of just clicking the mouse, hold the mouse down and pull the line, draw it. And as you do, you'll begin to notice you get these little handles when you click on that point. And these handles can be used to cause the line to turn. And let's see, so put some more in. There. So you can begin to see how you can bend around corners, which is one of the interesting things with paths. Now also, go back here and you pick the add anchor points. We can go in and put them in. We can put in more anchor points in between the ones we've got. And those anchor points, you notice, will all have the little handles where you can rotate them. You can also go into this delete anchor points, and we can click on them and get rid of them. So basically the paths let you have a lot more options for making very fine changes. And as this path will always remain with the picture, you can go back in and use it more often. But you can also go back into the path and alter it when you need to. Now, the box right below here also has to do with the pen tool. If we're going to do the direct selection tool, it looks like a white arrow. You can grab a point and you can pull it and push it. That also allows you to do refining. Okay, so now that you're a little bit used to the pen, keep doing this until you get used to it, feel comfortable with it. We're going to start on a picture, show you what you can do. So we're going to open this picture up. Fit it on the screen. Okay, we've got this little guard character here, and we're going to move him into another picture, into a scene. But first of all, we're going to select him. Now, I find this easiest if we pick a place we want to start, enlarge it, get your pen tool. Up here, by the way, you need to make sure of some things. You need to make sure you've got this center one clicked, which is going to do paths. If you're on this other one, the shape layers, it's not going to work the way you want. You also can choose the pen tool where you're putting in points, or you can choose a free transform if you're real good at handling it, where you just draw around the images. The manual mentions if you have the option box to make sure the rubber band option is checked. Most of your Photoshops, the newer versions, that's automatic, and so you're not going to be able to find a rubber band option. Don't worry about it. Okay, so we're going to begin with, we're going to simply go in here and begin putting in points. Remember, with the path tool, you can add more points later, you can move the points around, so don't worry a lot about getting right on at this point. And you can also bend them around. Okay, when you come to an edge, hold down the shift key so you get the hand, and move the picture over so we got a new section. And continue drawing around it. Putting in the points as you go. Now these curves are areas where you could use those handles to make it turn around them. I just tend to put in more points. So that means I'm not actually using the tool to its full advantage. And again, reach the edge, move it. Now you'll also notice one other advantage of using the paths. If you accidentally double click and you're using other selection tools, they'll immediately join together. If you're using certain tools, you'll when you start drawing the line, it doesn't allow you to do a lot of changes. You just have to remember that this tool will allow you to do all kinds of changes. Also, while I'm using the regular path tool, you do have a magnetic path tool, which when you draw around looks for differences in tone. And so you can actually use it drawing around the subject. And in this case, where there's a big difference between the white background and the little man, it would probably do quite well. But I'm stubborn and I am already using this pen, so I'm not going to change over. There's also, by the way, a point down here where you're going to have to do some guessing anyway, so we're getting to it now, where that turns into a white sleeve. And so I sort of have to figure where that's going. And then get the end of the broom here. Where the areas are longer, you can put more space in between the points. Okay, and as we're coming on around, just keep doing this till you get back to your starting point. Now, I should mention, if as you're doing this, the little man starts disappearing, in other words, you begin getting blank areas, that means you are not on the path command up at the top. You're on the layers command, and it's actually slicing out parts of the picture. So if that starts happening, stop what you're doing, go back, check your commands, make sure that you're on paths, and start again. Okay, now the advantage to using paths, so we go back in here, get the plus, add anchor points. We can go in here where it's slightly off, and we can add new anchor points. To help refine it a little bit. So in essence, we can go in and actually refine this path down to make it more closely resemble the images that we want. We can also go in and remove anchor points if they're in the wrong place, so on. So we can just actually keep refining this down until we get exactly what we're looking for. In this case, I'm not going to be real careful because you get the idea of what we're going into. Okay, so now we've got a path. And you'll notice over here on the menus, if we click on the path palette, you'll see that little image there that's being drawn. We can now go over here under the options, click on those, and we can turn this path into a selection by making it a selection. We're setting the feather at 0, anti-eliasing, we're clicking that, it's a new selection. We click OK. And you'll notice we have now selected the subject, but we haven't lost the path. If the little path is still showing up here, you just click below it and it'll turn it off for now. Okay, so let's open the next picture, the field. Yeah, put that on screen. Now, what we're going to do, we're now going to put the little man over here into the field. So we're just going to click on the Move tool, pull him over. You can now go back here and turn him off. And if we click the Save, it would save him with the path. I'm just turning it off so that you'll have to do your own path. Now you can go to Image, to Edit, Free Transform, and you can make him any size you want. Again, if you're holding the Shift key down while you pull a corner, he stays proportional. If you don't hold the Shift key down, he'll get real fat or real tall. And then get him size we want. I'm going to move him where we want. Okay. Okay, so now we've put the little man on the field. However, at this point, he doesn't look real convincing. What I want to do is make him part of the field. In other words, paint him into the picture. We're going to do that by masking him. So we're going to go back to Layers. You'll notice the little man is on his own layer, so I can put a mask on that layer by Add Layer Mask. Click on that. I make sure the mask is activated. It's the one with the wide border around it. And to start with, we're just going to use a pretty large brush. That's good. And with black, I'm just going to wipe out the bottom half of him. Okay, so it doesn't look very convincing yet. So we'll get up where the flowers are. But now, to paint him into the field, I'm going to go back. I'm going to choose a much smaller brush. A little larger than that. I am going to enlarge this bottom area. And we're going to do, switching over to white and the brush. And there's, we can see, we're going to start painting him back in where you'd be able to see him. So we're going to have to go down and begin to figure out what are the spaces where he would actually show through if he were standing in this bed of flowers. And we're just going to start painting him in. Now you really cannot make a mistake, because if you do, you just switch back to the black and paint him out. And this is why you're using smaller brushes. It's because you're doing real fine detail. So for example, in here, I have to paint him in behind the flower. And you have some choices here. You have to decide which leaves would be in front, which ones would be in back. It takes time to do this well. You have to work slowly, figuring him around, painting him in. If it's a mistake, paint him out, redo it. Again, as I said, you can't really make mistakes because everything is correctable as you're going in. So get his hand back in there. And remember, because you've already selected him and it's clear around him, it's not going to paint in anything in the background. So if you're painting and nothing's coming through, it's because there's nothing there. So we're getting his sleeve in here. And if you need to, you can just keep enlarging a little more, working with finer and finer brushes. So as we begin to put him in here. But you just work through and very slowly begin to paint him back in, but behind the leaves and behind the flowers. Now, one thing to notice, if you've got the flower in front of him, you have to make sure the stem is also in front of him. So don't try painting it out. And then same thing over here. And you just keep slowly working through, painting him back in where he would be seen if he were standing in the flower field. So the spaces where he would begin to be seen through. Where you decide he wouldn't be seen, you just leave him out. Okay, now there's an area here. You see where the flower is a little bit transparent. So I'm going to go over to black, and I'm going to paint the flower petals in stronger. Then back to white. Now this is the problem here. I don't exactly know where he is behind here. So if I'm painting and nothing's coming through, that means I have gone to a place where the little man isn't. So you just have to keep moving around to figure out exactly where he actually is. quite a big area down here, but notice not much there. There we are. We've got a little bit of his spear here. So we can start painting that back in. Right in front of that flower, let's see what we got. And so as you see, we just keep slowly trying these areas to see if there's any little man there. Okay, so you'll get the idea of this as we're doing it. If you come too close to an edge, again, push the Shift key, move it over. We're getting down to the bottom of his little asparagus spear here. And again, you're just beginning to decide what is in front of him and what would be behind him as you're painting this all in. And I've decided that stalk should still be there, so okay, so put it on so you can see it all on screen. So you begin to see the idea. You just go into these areas where you would be seeing through, and you paint him back in. You remember he's actually on top, so to make him show up, you use the white. Of course, it helps if you actually pick someplace where he is. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. You paint him into the scene so that part of the background is showing through. This is a little bit like an exercise you've done earlier, in which you refine the image so it looks like the man and his family have moved from the beach into the mountains. But in this, you're actually trying to make it look like they are one picture. So moving it in, very carefully paint them into the scene. Okay, that's the basic idea of the whole thing. You've got paths, and you've learned this subtle way of masking to mask one image into another. That's all there is to it.